Hey everyone, it's Susan Jones and welcome back to my Sunday Spotlight. Today I'm actually going to go ahead and share 5 fun and simple comprehension activities or strategies that you can use with distance learning. Now, when I say with distance learning, that means you can either do them in a video like this, if you are Zooming with students, or if you are doing any sort of video chatting with students. You can also send them as lessons or assign some of these worksheets as lessons for students to complete with any book that they read. Most of these are simple enough as well that you could easily just send them home with the parents of your students and have them use them to kind of check in on any book that they're reading at home as well. So I wanted to make these very simple, and let's dive in. Before I get started, I want to share that I actually grabbed all of these little activities. I kind of grabbed little snippets from my Comprehension Strategies That Stick unit. I had worked on this actually all last year. It's over 100 pages worth of ideas, activities, and kind of like mini lessons for you to use with your students to check in on comprehension. So I went in and I grabbed some ones that I thought would be great for distance learning, and I'm going to share them with you right now. The first comprehension strategy that you can go ahead and practice is to activate your schema. Now, when teaching students about their schema, we explain to them that it's what they already know or what they already think they know. It's their background knowledge. And we also explain that as they grow older and they learn new things, their schema can change and expand and grow. I particularly like to have students practice activating their schema when we're reading about nonfiction. So I have a sheet that looks like this one that I'm actually going to link in the description. Everything I mention in this video will be linked down there. So go ahead and watch this whole video first, and then make sure you grab the printouts that will go along so that way you know how to do the activities, because the instructions aren't in there. Now, as you can see, this is just a simple recording sheet where they have their name and the topic that they can go ahead and write. So again, you could either send this home and have students read any nonfiction book to complete this, or if you were going to go ahead and record a lesson, you could record yourself reading a nonfiction book and have them complete this as well. So to do this, what they'll do at first is they'll write down the topic. Let's say we're learning about dolphins. They'll write dolphins there. Then, before they even begin reading or listening to you read, they will need to write down what they already know in this column over here. So they will just think of a few quick facts that they already know about dolphins and record them. After they've gone ahead and read the book or listened to you read it, they will write down what their new learning is. What are some facts that they learned after listening to you read? And how did their schema change? For that section down at the bottom, how did their schema change? That comes to play when they might have thought, for instance, that spiders were insects. That's a pretty common one that we get in kindergarten and first grade when we're talking about insects and bugs, and many students think, their schema tells them, that, oh, a spider is an insect. But it's not. We know that it's an arachnid. And if we read that in our text, that might be something that changed and they could record it there. So I thought this schema sheet would be very helpful for you to have, and you can use it however you see fit. Okay, the next comprehension strategy to work on is making inferences. And for this, I love to do it through photographs. I like to teach my kids that the author does not always tell us exactly what's happening in the story through their words, right? We need to use our schema, what we already know, plus some clues from the text, either in the words or clues from the illustrations, to figure out what is happening. And so I love to use real-life photographs for this type of strategy. I'll insert a picture of an anchor chart that I've used in the past. It looks like this. And what I do with this anchor chart is you can see above it says I can infer, and then I show the class a photograph, right? Like this one of this older man reading to a younger girl. Looks like she's sitting on his lap. And I use this sentence stem, I can infer blank because I know blank and I can see blank. And we take a close look at those photographs and try to infer what is happening. Again, there's no text here. There's no author telling us exactly what's happening. I might say, I can infer her grandpa is teaching her to read because I know that usually when someone is learning how to read, somebody older is teaching them how to read and they need a book in front of them. And here I can see that she is kind of sitting with her grandpa and they are reading a book in front of them. So that might be something that's happening. They also could just be reading a book together and they like to do that. Again, I can make that inference because of what I already know and what I see in the picture. So using photographs in that sentence stem, that is something you can do through distance learning to have your students continue practicing those inferring skills. I went ahead and included a picture of this anchor chart within the packet below, and I also included 2 different photographs that you can use to do this. You can also, of course, scour Google, look at any other images to try to find photographs to do this as well. The next comprehension strategy is questioning. Now, I love to really teach my students that their questions have value. It really helps them kind of stay within the text when they're reading, and they're asking themselves all sorts of questions about what's happening. Now, many times as the teacher, it can be easy to kind of brush off questions, especially if you kind of have an agenda, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but a lot of times, we go into a lesson and we have an agenda, we have something we want to teach, and kids ask questions, and sometimes we brush them off. But it's really important to try to, again, teach them that their questions have value and that they are important questions, and that kind of gets their confidence soaring, right? It gets them thinking more about what's in the text. Now, when I'm teaching students how to ask questions throughout a story, I teach them that we usually ask questions 3 different times throughout a book. We can ask questions before we read, maybe when we looked at the cover and we have some questions about what's going to happen in the story. We can ask questions throughout our story if something is confusing, or maybe we have a prediction that is kind of like a question, we form it as a question. And we can ask questions at the end if we are left wondering some things about the characters or what we learned. Now, I created a bunch of questioning passages that were meant specifically to go ahead and elicit questioning, and I actually shared them on my blog forever ago, so I went ahead and included them in this unit. I'll go ahead and post a picture of them here. But they're basically little mini books, and there's 3 fiction and 3 nonfiction ones. So what students will do is after each page of the mini book, they will have to ask a question, and that includes that cover page. Again, I made these books specifically to elicit questioning, so it really helps them think and ask themselves some questions about what might be happening. Okay, the 4th way to check in on reading comprehension is through retelling. It is through a retelling of a story that we really can listen and understand what our students kind of picked out as important and what they understood from the story as well. Now, I have shared this strategy over in a retelling video that I'll link up here, so I won't talk about it for too long, but essentially this strategy is called stop and sketch. And what you will do for distance learning is if you are reading a book aloud to them, you will stop at 3 different parts of your story. And during that time, once you've stopped, you will have students sketch in the sheet here what they think has happened so far. Right? So they will do a quick sketch of what has happened so far in the story. And it lets you take a look and see what they think is most important as well as they're sketching. Then you'll stop again in somewhere else in the middle and towards the end. Students can easily do this during a video distance learning type of lesson, or again, this one is simple enough that you can pass along to parents and really do with any book that they read. And last but not least, a comprehension strategy I wanted to share is all about visualizing. Now, when our students visualize their stories, they're making a mind movie in their head, right? They're sharing with you what they pictured as they read. I thought a visualizing type of activity would be great for distance learning because you could actually go ahead and record yourself reading a book without any video. That can be done through a voice memo on your phone. It can be done through a camera like this. It can be done in so many different ways. And again, their parents can also do it as well. Now, in that comprehension strategies that stick unit, I had actually went ahead and written a few visualization poems that were pretty vivid so students could imagine what you are reading and they could go ahead and draw it. So I included 2 of those poems within the printables down below in the description, as well as a visualization sheet. Here's an example of one of the poems just so you can get an idea of what they're like. The sweat was dripping from my head as the sun shone down on me and Ted. We were waiting for the ice cream truck. I was hoping my cone would be less than $1. That's when I saw it, the song we could hear. It's finally coming. We jumped and we cheered. So you would go ahead and read a poem like that or have students' parents do it at home And since there's no illustrations, they have to come up with their kind of mental imagery in their head on their own. And then they can go ahead and record it and draw a picture of it. If you are able to meet with groups of students, either small group or a whole group classroom right now, then that would be a great one to do by assigning it first, and then have students come to your meeting with their visualization sheet. And it's a lot of fun to kind of compare what different students thought and what they pictured in their head as you read that poem. So there you are. Those are 5 fun comprehension strategies that you can do through distance learning. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new week's video. See you next week. Bye. I'm done. I'm done.